Hi everyone, I'm Anne-Marie from BrambleBerry.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this amazing bar of unscented turmeric soap. We were coloring it with turmeric and we're using turmeric shea butter in it. Turmeric shea butter is actually this really unique blend of oils that you can get at BrambleBerry.com. That's shea butter, turmeric extract, jojoba, and coconut oil, and it is so luxurious and so wonderful in this recipe. It doesn't really impart any scent to the final bar, but I feel like it gives a warm nuttiness almost in just how it feels. Now, we didn't scent this bar. That's because when you make your own soap from scratch, well, you can do anything you want. So we didn't scent it because we thought that this was pretty awesome unscented. Now, you always can scent this. If it were me, I'd probably do like a ginger essential oil or maybe even a citrus, something maybe a little spicier. Another thing we did, it's kind of silly, but we asked Instagram, hey, what should we do for toppings? And we asked if we should do cornflower or safflower. And Instagram was totally not helpful. It was literally 50-50 down the middle. So we're going to make a 50-50 batch for you guys because that's what you can do when you're making your own stuff. You can customize. So you ready to get started? First thing, suit up for safety. If you haven't watched any of my cold process soap making videos, this is not the one to start learning how to make soap on. Go back and watch the first 4 videos on Soap Queen TV on making cold process soap. You can have a good laugh at my hairstyle, but also you'll be able to get the basics down on how to make cold process soap. Gonna be wearing my gloves, gonna grab my goggles, and we'll get started. All right, let's do this. First things first, I am going to mix in my turmeric with my oils. And so this is just that little mini mixer from BrambleBerry.com. And I'm just making sure it's fully dispersed. This helps get rid of any clumps or whatever in the colorant mixture. And then this recipe, it's pretty fast moving. It's discounted by 10% for the water. And it's also designed so that the layers actually will hold. So I want to prep my color ahead of time. So this entire batch is going to be split into 4 even sizes. And one of these is getting no color. And then the next one is going to just get 1/4 teaspoon of color. Just a little bit. I'm going to put that in there right now, getting it all in there because a 1/4 teaspoon is pretty small. Then I need to keep these in order or else I will be very sad about that. And then my next one is 1.5, so 1.5 teaspoons of this dispersed turmeric. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball that half, which may or may not lead to disaster, but it's soap, so how bad could it get? And then finally, it's this huge one is a full tablespoon followed by 1 teaspoon. And one of the things that I am doing right now is putting these directly onto my beautiful white countertop. I'm gonna stop right now and move them off the countertop because turmeric stains really beautifully. Okay, I'm done. I'm back. Just didn't really want to stain this at all. This is my lye water. It's been pre-mixed, and since it's on the table, guess what I'm gonna do? That's right, suiting up for safety. Got my gloves on, my goggles on, closed-toed shoes, children and pets not here. We're gonna do this. It's gonna be great. I have everything prepped, and this is all in order of how I'm going to be adding it. Although, if I do it right, I should be able to visually figure out what's what. Part of success in soap making is honestly all about the prep. And so making sure I have my colorants there, making sure my herbs are close by, making sure that my lye water is fully prepped, my oils are at a good temperature. Now I'm just gonna pour slowly down the shaft of this stick blender. And the reason I do that is just kind of to avoid excess air bubbles. It's an aesthetic thing. It's not that big of a deal. This is gonna be pretty thick trace though. So if I do have air bubbles, they will be pretty visible in the final bar of soap. Now we've got all the lye water in. I'm gonna put that to the side and turn on the stick blender. We're gonna be working with a pretty thin trace because with each of these, we are going to stick blend right before we end up putting them in the mold anyways. So we're gonna just go with a very kind of thin trace, light emulsification. And can you guys see that change of color? That change of color indicates that there's still a little bit more trace to get. Now I'm almost there though, so if I stick blend much more than this, we won't be at our nice light trace. But those are just some visual indications and some clues about, hey, did I reach trace or did I not? And now there's not very much color differentiation happening. I'm gonna separate this into the 4 batches. And with the white soap, since there's no extra oil in there, right? I didn't put any extra turmeric plus oil mixture. That one's gonna get thickest fastest. So what I wanna do with that is make sure I have a spatula close at hand so I can kind of, or a whisk close at hand so I can kind of always be just moving it around and keeping it really fluid. And I'm looking for about 600 milliliters, so I'm just going to do the first one so I can kind of copy it for the rest of them. There we go. And remember, we're going to be stick blending these to kind of thicker layers before we put them in. And now that these are fully separated out, and I've gotten the last bits of soap out, I'm going to bring my mold into frame. I'm going to move these guys out so you guys can see a little bit better. I'm gonna put my whisk in the white over here because I know I'm gonna need to play with that. Now I'm gonna take my first layer, which this is the one, you guys, that is the darkest layer. So this is the one that has the full tablespoon plus teaspoon of the turmeric and the turmeric oil mixture, and it's also gonna be the one that takes the longest to trace thickly. The reason it's gonna be the one that takes the longest is because it's got the most extra oil in it. So now I can kind of check. First of all, it's a gorgeous color, but I can kind of check and see, like, is this going to hold another layer? Like, this is a good medium to thick trace. It's still not probably going to hold that next layer very well though. So I'm just going to really get it thicker. So this is pretty thick. Now it looks like pudding, aka delicious. There's a reason we don't have children around when we are soaping. So go ahead and pour this in evenly. And since this isn't going to spread very well, make sure you're pouring it in evenly as opposed to you assuming it's going to spread. Take your spatula, get all the leftovers out. Try not to get onto the side of the mold because remember we're making layers. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of smooth this out using my spoon. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Our layers are pretty rustic, but I also want it to be as smooth as possible, so I'm just going to smooth it out using my spoon. And now I'm ready for my next layer. So we're going to do the same thing with this layer. Stick blender in, burp it on the bottom to make sure there's absolutely no air bubbles underneath. That's real. Now this is pretty thick. I'm going to really quickly give my white just a little bit of love. Make sure that it's staying nice and fluid. And it's looking pretty good. So move it over here and add this next layer gently. I love these easy pour containers from Bramble Berry because I can just kind of pour really low and slow to make sure that my layers stay even. This is thick again though, so I'm doing all the work to make sure that the soap goes evenly throughout the mold. I will give it a tap, but realistically, you need to be the one that's in charge of ensuring that the soap goes all the way into every single crevice and all the way down the mold. So now that that's done, then we take our spoon and go side to side, kind of even out that layer. Now it's time for our third color, but before we do that, I'm just gonna give my white a little bit of love, give it a little bit of stirring, and third color, here we go. Last layer. I'm tapping it so hard because I'm getting all the air bubbles to the surface. And again, air bubbles aren't that big of a deal. It's just so you can see them in your final bar, which always drives me a little bonkers. Whew. that is a thick trace. Definitely gonna need to spatula this bad boy out. There we go. And I'm gonna need to tap pretty strongly on the table to make sure that this goes down into the sides too, and utilize my spoon to make sure that this is pretty evenly distributed. But before I do that, I really want to check my white soap. It's still nice and fluid, so we've done okay so far, but I did stir in between each layer. So here we go. All right, I have no hearing anymore, but that is nice and flat. So while it's tempting to just pour it in, we do need to stick blend it. Now, final layer. And this one, we're gonna let sit for a little bit so we can manipulate it, because it'll probably take maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes, enough for you to start kind of working on your dishes probably, before it's really ready to fully manipulate. And since this is white and I want it to stay white, I'm going to clean my spoon off too, because my spoon is a little bit yellow. I'm going to tap, tap, tap. Now I'm just going to even this out before I work on my texture. And I don't know that my texture is going to stay yet. We'll see. I'm just evening it out by just skating the spoon over the top. There we go. All right. Moment of truth. Is this gonna stay? I don't know. It's so pretty. I love to manipulate cold process soap. I have ruined so many batches and so many designs because I get so excited about this manipulation of the wet soap. There's something really satisfying about it. So now that it's here, before I put my petals on, I'm just gonna wait like 10 seconds to make sure that I'm not seeing any of the design diminishing. Meaning if it's too hot or if it's not at a thick enough trace, the design kind of floops down and doesn't keep its really nice peaks. I have to say, this looks pretty good. I think we're fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So here we have our cornflower. Here we have our safflower. And I am going to just grab a generous little heap of that cornflower. Instead of moving it directly over, I'm going to move it around because I just want it to be kind of in this quarter quadrant here. And so you can always add more, but you can't take it off. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. And again, this is just my design idea. Like, if you want the whole thing to have cornflower all over it, dude, that's why you make your own products. You get to customize as much or as little as you want. So I'm really happy with how much this is there. And I'm just gonna kind of, little bit of tapping in. I just like it to stay just a little bit. There we go. And now I'm gonna use my safflower. And the safflower is slightly different in texture than the cornflower. It's almost a little, they kind of stick together a little bit more. So they drop a little bit more volume. So keep that in mind if you're doing exactly the same batch. And then here we go. And push, push, push. And then I am going to make sure that this goes through gel phase. So I've got my heating pad set up behind me. I'm just gonna move this right over to the heating pad right away. And this is, if you're spraying with 99% rubbing alcohol, this is also when you wanna do your first spray. Now I'm gonna move this over to the heating pad to ensure that this goes through gel phase, because I want to force it through gel phase because it'll brighten the color up and it'll make it so I can take this soap out of the mold within just 24 hours. And the Bramble Berry molds, since they're wooden, they insulate really, really, really well. So if you are in just kind of a normal ambient room temperature, you can leave it like that on the heating pad and it most likely will go through gel phase. If you're in a soap shop and say you're working out of a garage or it's kind of cold or it's not insulated, you may end up wanting to cover that with a little bit of a towel or something to prevent heat loss to ensure you go through gel phase. And then after that, you guys, we're gonna unmold that in just a day and it's awesome. So this is the Bramble Berry 5-pound bottom sliding mold. I like it because then the entire thing just kind of drops out as opposed to you wrestling with the silicone and trying to pull. When you unmold using the Bramble Berry silicone liners, I like to pull gently away on the sides. And the reason I do this and the reason it's gentle is because I'm always kind of looking to make sure that this soap isn't tearing. If it's tearing, you want to stop and let it, and pull away from the sides to give it some airflow, but you don't want to try and pop it out. And I can see that this is not tearing, which is awesome. Again, just made yesterday, and that sodium lactate and that 10% water discount works wonders. And we have our dual herb on the top, so I'm going to kind of pull this out from the side as opposed to just flipping it, right? Because that's what you could do. So then I'm just gently do that. And then it's a little soft. I got a little bit on my hands, but it's enough that I can show you guys. And then I'm going to be able to see if that gel phase really worked, because the gel phase, because we put this on a heat pad, is also really important for being able to get the soap out right away. Gel phase helps to harden your bar right away. So here we go with here. Whew, that looks awesome. This is the Bramble Berry multi-bar cutter. Since we have petals on the top of this, I am going to put this on these petals on the side so they don't get drugged down the entire bar. So go here and here, and get it all the way snug there, all the way snug there. And then this is where it takes a little bit of kind of elbow grease and a little bit of core. So I'm gonna move this around. Sorry, I know it's not as good for the camera, but I got it really core up here. And I can hear the soap as it's cutting, and it's such a perfect sound. And did you hear that little beep? That was when these wires went through the whole batch. So here we go. There is our bar of soap. And let's check this one out. And then here we have this. So I am really happy with how this looks. You can really see the turmeric differentiation. And you know what's funny? Even though I know I didn't scent this, all I want to do is smell it. It's ridiculous. It actually smells pretty good though. It smells like, well, good clean soap. So now that these are almost all the way cut, I have a little bit more to cut. These need to sit for between 4 and 6 weeks to make sure that they fully cure and dry out. Part of this 4 to 6 weeks is really letting that water evaporate out, as well as letting the bar get to its final gentleness for a cold process soap. One of the reasons people use cold process soap is it is so gentle on the skin, and that last 4 to 6 weeks is really important for that. So again, made this yesterday, 10% water discount, sodium lactate, fully gelled it, popped it out today, cut it. Now it just needs to sit for 4 to 6 weeks, and then it'll be ready to use or give away. You guys, I'm so happy you watched this video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. And when you make this, or you make some variation of it, or when you make anything, just make sure to tag it on social media, #BrambleOn, so I can see it and everybody else in the soap making community can see it, and we can all get inspired. Till next time, you guys, I can't wait to see what you create.